Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Kosman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 289 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Kosman. I'm joined as ever by one of my best friends in this world. It is, of course, former heavyweight world title challenger, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. How you feeling?
Always good when speaking with you, my friend. Always good when speaking with you. I'm excited for this week's show. We're going to have on two guests, which is back to normal. We're going to get on, of course, Craig Spider Richards, who's boxing for a world title on Saturday. And towards the end of the show, at the very end, we're going to have an in-depth interview, I should say, with one of the very best ever, in my opinion, Mr. Roy Jones Jr. It is unbelievable. I'm really, really looking forward to the listeners getting to hear that. Anyway, before we get into that, let's dive into the review part of the show. We're going to start here at the Palau Olympic Val de Hebron in Barcelona, Catalonia, Spain. This one, of course, took place last Friday. It was April 23rd, a couple days before my birthday. So that was, it was a good card in Spain, actually. It was kind of like Britain against Spain, and we didn't do very well, to be honest with you. I'm going to start with, I guess, the main event. Sandor Martin, now 38-2. It was his 40th fight. He was able to unanimously, over 12 rounds, beat our very own K Prosper, who's now 14-2 with a draw. It was for the EBU European Super Lightweight title. K Prosper had a point deducted in the 8th round and another point deducted in the 11th round. The referee was absolutely appalling, by the way, but I think it was, a fight really that had the writing on the wall before it happened, Sandor Martin's not really a puncher. Prosper's not really a puncher. It had the distance written all over it, and it went the distance. And like I say, Prosper showed some skills in there. It was the first time I think he'd been on TV. I was happy for him getting the opportunity. He was boxing in orthodox. He was boxing in southpaw. The referee was awful, like I say, but he showed us a few areas to his game, and I actually am quite excited to see what he can do when he returns back to Britain. There's a few fights domestically for him, I feel. But yeah, he doesn't have the prettiest looking record, but hopefully he can still get an opportunity. I think Sandor Martin is quite special, not perhaps as special as the commentary were leading us on to believe, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Elsewhere on the card, we had Andoni Gargo against friend of the show, Gavin McDonnell. A bit of a shock, really, in my opinion. I thought Gavin McDonnell was gonna win that fight quite easily. Actually, I've seen Andoni Gargo before. He's a tough guy. Lee Selby, I think, managed to stop him late on in their fight, but he's a tough guy. I think he's improved since losing to Selby, but he's not really that good. He's not really that good. And I think against someone who's as fluid a boxer as Gavin McDonnell, I just didn't think that he'd be able to cause Gavin any trouble, really. 24-3 with 4 draws now, Mr. Gargo, and Gavin McDonnell now 22-2 with 3 draws. A technical draw in the 5th round. The referee straight away stopped the fight in the 5th round as soon as the bell went to begin the round, and he sent Gavin McDonnell over to the doctor. I think it was the second time he'd gone over there for an inspection, and they stopped the fight then and there. And I think, to be honest with you, Gavin McDonnell was quite lucky, quite fortunate. And I think there was one awful scorecard by the British judge, but the other 2 judges had it a draw, so that's why it ended up being a technical draw. But yeah, very hard done by, I think, Andoni Gargo. For me, I mean, he was probably winning that fight. He was all over Gavin McDonnell. Like I say, he calls the cut, and they said it was from a head clash. But I don't think it was. I mean, they showed a replay. I'm not sure if it was, to be honest with you. So I felt like he was quite hard done by there. But listen, I don't really care too much. I am a big fan of Gavin McDonnell, so I'm giving my opinion, but I'm kind of happy for Gavin, if I'm being honest, which is all I ever will be. Elsewhere on the card, we had Kerman Leharaga getting in there against Jez Smith. What a fight this was, by the way. Kerman Leharaga now 32-2, Jez Smith now 12-3 with a draw. Unbelievable fight, I have to say. Jez Smith had Kerman Leharaga down in the 3rd round, and he also had him down, I think it was in the 4th round. Brilliant start to the fight for Jez Smith. You know, he's got a good boxing brain. He doesn't always put it all together on the night, I don't think, but yeah, beautiful uppercut from him in the 3rd. Down went Leharaga, he jumped straight back up, but it was a beauty of a shot from Smith. He was boxing out of his skin, and I didn't give him a chance going into this fight. I really didn't. I just couldn't see a way. I thought Leharaga would take him out, and possibly quite early. And then, of course, he put him down again in the 4th round. It was a big right hand from Leharaga, and Smith came back with that same kind of screw shot uppercut, and down he went again for the 2nd time there. I felt that Jez Smith's judge of distance was laser-like. It was unbelievable. And whenever Leharaga did get close, he'd grab hold. It was smart tactics, and Smith's hand speed as well was on another level to the Spaniard. But yeah, the very next round, round 6, Leharaga, he seemed to find another gear, and he really put it on Jez Smith. Brutal body shots, which we've seen before. Bradley Skeet could tell you about those. Big headshots as well to follow, and down Jez Smith went. He got back up, and the bell went for the end of the round, so he kind of got saved there by the bell. And then he came out in the next round, which, like I say, was round 7. And I felt it was a tad bit premature, maybe, from the referee. I think, again, the writing was on the wall at that point. He was in big trouble. There's no doubt about that. But, yeah, Jez Smith, after the dream start to the fight, it all just came crumbling down so quickly. So I was very, upset for him, because he is a guy that hasn't had it easy either. He's had to kind of come up on the small hall shows, and then he gets late notice jobs and stuff like that. And yeah, it was a big opportunity for him, and he was boxing tremendously. And then, it all comes crashing down. So very, very sad for him. Hopefully there's another opportunity for him out there. Moving out now to the convention center in Japan. I just don't know what to say about this one. Daigo Higa, now 17-2 with a draw. He lost a unanimous decision over 12 rounds to Ryosuke Nishida, who was 3-0 going in, now of course 4-0. It was for the WBO Asia Pacific Bantamweight title. I just don't know what's going on with Daigo Higa, because he's a guy who, for me, was, one of the real top guys to look out for coming out of Japan, across all the weights, really, knocking everyone out. Then, of course, he got knocked out himself by Christopher Rosales. That was back in 2018. Since then, he knocked out a guy who was 7-4 with 3 draws. So what does that mean? And he was coming off about 2 years out the ring. Okay, whatever. Then he gets in with a guy who was 5-0 with a draw, and he got a majority draw over 10 rounds. That was in October of 2020. Then he had a fight in December of 2020 against a guy who was 16-8. He was able to get him out of there. Then the very first sniff at a step up was against this guy who was only 3-0, Nishida. And I don't know if he had much of an amateur background or anything, but a brilliant win for him to do that. And yeah, it seems like Daigo Higa's just kind of burned out really quickly. He was a guy that nowhere in the world would have been going the distance in any fight, and now it's happened a few times when he stepped up. It's happened, I think, 3 times out of 3 or whatever, or 2 times out of 2 since getting knocked out. So he seems like he's not the same fighter he once was. So yeah, moving on from that, moving out now to York Hall in Bethnal Green, London, the mecca of boxing over here. On the undercard, let's start with David Adelaide against Kamil Sokolowski. Wow, what a place to start here. Kamil Sokolowski, one of the most dangerous heavyweight journeymen there is in the game. Sokolowski definitely won the fight for me. I wasn't strictly scoring it round by round, but I could see with my eyes what was going on there. Adelaide really was struggling when he was being pushed back, and he needs to calm down, I think, from calling out the likes of Nathan Gorman. Sokolowski was pulled in as well at late notice too. I didn't think they'd give it to him, which they didn't, and I actually had a bet on David Adelaide to win on points, which I think was kind of easy money, really. They didn't give it to him on the cards. Adelaide, for me, was a little bit exposed, and I hate to say that because I like the guy, I like his attitude, I like the fact he was a big punching heavyweight with a fantastic looking body that excites people, but, you know, when he was put on the back foot, he didn't really know what to do, and everything seemed to kind of just vanish. Where was the power? Where was that power? You know, on the back foot, he seemed to not be able to generate that power that he usually has when he's coming forward like a wrecking ball. I'd like to see the rematch. Sokolowski, like I say, very, very dangerous fight for pretty much anyone. And if you didn't know already, if you're a promoter listening to me, do not take a fight with this guy. If you're trying to turn an undefeated heavyweight into a cash cow, don't fight Kamil Sokolowski. But yeah, a lot of people were very, disappointed with those. Well, it wasn't scorecards; it was the referee that scored it, Marcus McDonnell. Yeah, he's done David Adelaide a real favour there. He's somehow now 6-0, and he went the distance for the first time. Also on the card, Callum Johnson now 19-1, a TKO in the second round against Emil Markic. That one was for the WBO Global Light Heavyweight title. Really pleased for Callum Johnson. He hasn't had it easy. He's another guy that hasn't had it easy, and he was coming off quite a bit of inactivity. His first fight with Frank Warren, I knew that he was going to try and make a statement. He came out straight away, not playing any games, not wasting any time. He was keen to make a statement. Like I say, on his Frank Warren debut, he was all over Markic, and he walked into a brilliant right hand himself that staggered him badly, Johnson, but he did quickly recuperate, and he went back to hurting his opponent. A big first round in the end for Callum Johnson, and he came out in the second and he did the business. He pinned Markic on the ropes and just started banging to the body and to the head. Nothing came back from Markic, and Steve Gray jumped in to stop it. I think it was the right thing to do from the referee there. A big win for Callum Johnson. I think he becomes by quite a distance the quickest man to stop that guy there. Elsewhere on the card, Denzel Bentley lost his O. He's now 14-1 with a draw. He was knocked out in the third round against the previously undefeated and still undefeated Felix Cash, who's now 14-0, and he's now the new Commonwealth and British middleweight champion. I think he took the British from Denzel, actually, so he's the new British middleweight champion. He still holds the Commonwealth, so good win for Felix Cash. That was on paper going to be a really exciting fight, but to be honest, Cash absolutely dominated him, and he seemed to really walk through Denzel Bentley. A big statement, and again, there's so many big fights out there for him. I'm really pleased for him, and once again, it's more momentum for that fantastic gym. We're going to be speaking to Craig Richards shortly. He's from that gym. What a way to bounce into fight week for a world title fight. You've got the likes of Felix Cash doing that to Denzel Bentley. You've got Conor Benn doing what he did to Samuel Vargas. The momentum, in this gym is unbelievable, and I really hope Craig Richards can become victorious when we speak not when we speak to him, because he's not fighting then, but when he fights on Saturday, I really hope he can do it. He is up against it. Moving out now to the Silver Spurs Arena in Florida, USA. This one over here, a top rank show. Let's start with the main event here. Emmanuel Navarrete, now 33-1, a TKO in the 12th and final round against Christopher Diaz. He really tried to give it his best, Christopher Diaz. He's now 26-3. It was for the WBO featherweight world title. It was a great fight. Navarrete really seems to be maturing as a champion now. He's just getting better and better all the time, it seems. Obviously, he's recently moved up in weight, and he seems to be just as dominant at this weight as he was down at 122. I was devastated for Diaz because the referee stopped it with only 16 seconds left on the clock in round 12. I was kind of gutted that he couldn't see the distance. He tried to win the belt for his family, for his children, and he put that pressure on himself, which I don't think is a good thing to do. But he gave it everything he could, and he just wasn't as good as Navarrete. So the right man won there, of course, and what a way to close the show. However, on the undercard, we didn't see this one coming either. Edgar Berlanga, 16-0 with 16 first-round knockouts. He stepped in against Demond Nicholson, who was a huge underdog. He was actually 100-1 in the betting odds to win by knockout in each round. So if you put £1 on him winning by, or $1 on him winning by knockout from round 1 to round 8, you could put, $1 per round. You'd win $100 if he got it. And he didn't get it, even though he's a big puncher, Damon Nicholson. He didn't get it, but it went the distance. Unbelievable. Damon Nicholson now 23-4 with a draw. And of course, Berlanga 17-0. He goes the distance for the first time there. Credit to Nicholson. He showed a lot of heart. Heart I didn't perhaps think he had. It was a big learning fight for Berlanga. He certainly wasn't exposed like a lot of people were trying to say he was. He just showed he is human. He's still a tremendous prospect. There's still a lot of big fights out there for him. They're talking about the Jesse Hart fight. I wouldn't mind that fight, but I think this particular fight here, 8 rounds of experience previously. He was 16-0 going in. Previously, to get 8 rounds of experience, it had taken half of his career. So he got half of his career experience in one night there, which just sounds unbelievable. But yeah, he is still a prospect to look out for. He still hits hard. None of it, I don't think, is a myth. And it just sets up some great fights in the future. Like I say, Jesse Hart, wouldn't mind that, but I don't think Jesse Hart. I don't think there's much in it for Jesse Hart, really. And being a friend of the show, I don't think I would advise him to take that fight unless he's getting paid crazy money. Anyway, that's it for that one. And yeah, that's actually it for the review part of the show. So just before we wrap up part 1, the final thing to do is to welcome our first guest on this week's podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning British light heavyweight champion. It is, of course, Mr. Craig Richards. Craig, welcome back on the show, my man.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure, Craig. So, Craig, we last caught up back in January, obviously a few weeks after that amazing win over Shakan Pitters, which I think was a win that really shocked quite a few people, not myself, but quite a few people. However, this task in front of you on Saturday night obviously is a whole nother level. I still think people are unsure of what level you really are. Some people didn't think you were good enough to be British level. You wiped out the undefeated giant to prove that you are at least that level. I don't think many people know how high your ceiling goes. Is that fair to say?
That's very fair to say. I think that's fair to say completely. People just don't know how good I can be. They're seeing me coming through the test that I'm not meant to come through pretty comfortably. We know we've seen this on Jake Paul. They didn't think I'd come through that. I came through that pretty comfortably. Shakan Pitters come through that pretty comfortably, and now it's on to the next task. And yet again, they have the same result. They doubt me until I prove them different.
And that leads me on perfectly to say, I think that it's right me saying that you seem to fight better when your opposition's better. I feel like you've not looked so great against some real lower level guys, but then you've always done your best work when the stakes are high. Is that meaning, is that right? Is that meaning that we're going to see a level of your game that we've never seen before?
That's exactly what it is. You see, throughout my career, the higher the opposition, the better I perform. You give me low-level opposition, sometimes I perform, I drop my level. You give me high opposition, I raise my game. And this would be the highest opposition I would have faced on paper and still obviously to date. So this is another level that you should see me going through my gears. I prepared hard for it, and I'm ready to go.
Let's go, baby. You're the underdog, Craig, obviously. Do you understand why you're the underdog? Do you feel it's fair that you're in that position in this particular fight?
Yeah, the other ones I didn't understand why I'm such an underdog. This one I understand very well. He's the WBA Super World Champion. He's beat a few guys on his resume. He's defended the title, I think, a numerous amount of times. He's unbeaten, so it's understandable.
And do you anticipate this fight being the hardest fight of your life? I know you're a guy that kind of likes to, visualize a lot of stuff, I feel. And there's been fights that people think, oh, this is going to be a tough one. And like I say, you've just gone through people like nothing. It makes me think of Jake Paul. But is this a fight you look at and think, do you know what? I probably see this as being the toughest challenge yet.
I thought that, but I feel so ready. I feel like maybe it may not. I don't know. I feel like it should be. And based on him and his performances, and how tough he's showed in the past, that it could be potentially, but I feel the way I feel a bit switched on. I don't know, maybe it's just the way I play it out in my head. Obviously, it's the only reality when that bell goes Saturday night, what's going to happen, but I do feel like it might not be as hard, but it could be. I'm prepared for a hard fight, but you never know with boxing.
And this might sound like a crazy question, but do you think it will be easier, Craig, to beat the guy on points or actually stop him?
I don't know. Obviously, I always want to get a stoppage if I can get the stoppage. See, if I see the opportunity, I'm definitely going for the stoppage. But if it has to go points, it'll have to go. But I think it'll be easier to stop him then, to be honest.
Okay. And
than to win on points.
And Craig, if you win, do you have a plan in place what to do next? Do you have a plan in place what to do next should you lose? Do you think that far? What can you tell us?
Of course. I thought about this plan. As soon as I win, I'm going to run with the belt, run off and go and celebrate. That's my further plans from here on. Anything to do career-wise past that, I've not thought about it. Obviously, I know it'll be big fights after that. And I look to embrace that, but I just want to take one step at a time and focus on the task I've got at hand this Saturday.
Yeah, and it's such an exciting time, like I say, domestically for the light heavyweights. You've got yourself obviously fighting primarily this weekend. You had Callum Johnson on show last weekend. We were supposed to see Anthony Yard. He obviously had to pull out. And I think just today they've made Lyndon Arthur #1 with a WBO. So Joe Smith, he's on his towel, it should seem. Yeah, the momentum as well of the gym that you're in, Craig. Obviously, you know, John Ryder winning just before Christmas. This year you've had Joe Cordina winning, Ted Cheeseman with a Fight of the Year contender, Conor Benn annihilating Samuel Vargas, and Felix Cash walking through Denzel Bentley respectfully. Your gym...
Don't forget, I was just before December with John Ryder. We boxed on the same day.
Oh, yeah, of course. Ugh. One was in the UK, one was in the US. But yeah, of course, what am I going on about? But it's back to your turn, obviously. You know, your gym hasn't always had the smoothest ride. Does the recent form give you that extra buzz, that extra push?
Yeah, of course. We're all working. The thing is, we're all working very hard. So it's only right, really, that we're all now getting the results that we feel like we should get.
Yeah, because I think there was a time where, you know, the gym, for whatever reason, weren't getting decisions. There was like a conspiracy that perhaps, there was some kind of bad officiating going that way. But now, I mean, wow, the run, like I say, has been perfect, exemplary. And, you know, it's beautiful. Like I say, I put out a tweet the other day, you know, it's all over to you now. Everyone's got their wins, and this is the biggest of them all. So, obviously, everyone's behind you. I want to ask you this one as well, Craig. I want to get your prediction for the main event, obviously, pay-per-view. Chisora Parker, who wins that one, big man?
I'm not sure. It's a good fight. Obviously, we've got the Brit against the guy from New Zealand.
Yeah.
It should be a very good fight. They're both a good high standard. It's just a clash of styles. It just depends on who can impose their style better, because Chisora's a very strong man. If he hits you, you're going to feel it. And Parker's very skillful and got quick hands. So I'm interested in that fight, to be honest. To be honest, I'm more focused on my own fight, but it's an interesting matchup.
Yeah. All right, man. And like I say, I know that you're in the bubble. Like I say, I want to keep it really nice and short. I appreciate you giving me time. Just before we sign out, my man, what's your closing words just to the listeners? I'm sure that every single person that listens to this will be supporting you. What's your message to those guys, Craig?
Thank you for everyone who got behind me and supported me. I appreciate that, and I want to bring it home Saturday night.
There we go, short and sweet. Listen, Craig, it's always great speaking with you. I'm so excited for the fight. I'll be tuned in, hoping and praying you can become world champion on Saturday night. And I look forward to seeing another picture of you on Sunday morning sleeping next to a new belt.
Me too. Me too. God willing. Thank you, brother.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. 3 pieces of news to mention, and they involve 3 friends of the show, which is nice, actually. We're going to start here. Sam Eggington, he takes on former world champion, big friend of the show. He's on the intro every week, Mr. King Carlos Molina. That one's going to be for the WBC Silver middleweight title. So Carlos has got Eggington going up to middleweight there. That's going to be on May 22nd, live and free on Channel 5. So that's going to be for everyone to watch. I'm really excited for the fight. I hope to possibly go over there, actually. I think it's in Coventry. So yeah, Sam Eggington against Carlos Molina. Very, very interesting one there. Elsewhere, Michael McKinson has signed a promotional deal with Matchroom Boxing. I think that's a great move for him. Again, he's a guy that's had to do it on the small hall shows. And, you know, he obviously penned a deal with MTK. And he's had some good fights recently, stuff like that, especially that win over Congo. So he deserves this opportunity. He really does. So I'm excited to see where his future lies. And we've got Chantel Cameron. She is having the fight against Melissa Hernandez. It's been rescheduled. It's now going to be part of the Devin Haney-Linares undercard on May 29th in Las Vegas. So pleased for Chantel Cameron getting some experience there stateside in her professional career. And again, she takes on Melissa Hernandez, who, like I say, is a really good fighter herself, actually. So that one should be quite interesting. But anyway, that's it for the news part of the show. Moving on now to the preview part of the show. We're going to start here with a card that takes place tomorrow, Friday, the 30th of April at the York Hall in Bethnal Green. Let's start with the undercard. A few prospects that are getting out that we should mention here. We've got Josh Frankham and Levi Frankham, both on the card there against guys with a lot of losses and not many wins. So, you know, two journeymen there. Ryan Garner, good to see him back. He's 9-0. He takes on Paul Holt, who's 7-10. That one is over 6 rounds there. Troy Williamson, 15-0 with a draw, takes on Kieran Smith, who's 16-0. That could be quite good there over 10 rounds. Michael Conlon, 14-0 in a 10-rounder against Iron Up Baluta. Probably saying his first name wrong. He's 14-2, but he's coming off a few upsets, actually. A few upset wins. He's got that win over... I've been calling him like the Irish Slayer because he's got that win over TJ Doheny, which I think took place in Dubai. Then after that, he went on to beat David Oliver Joyce by knockout in 3 rounds. So he is in there with Michael Conlon. That could be quite interesting. And the main event for the IBF World Flyweight title, we've got Maruti Umfalane. I think I'm probably saying that wrong again. I know the correct pronunciation, but I've forgotten it about 5 times today. But yeah, the reigning world champion from South Africa, really, really good fighter. He's been asking for a big fight for a long, long time. He's 38 years of age now, hasn't lost a fight since 2008, which was to Nonito Donaire. Really accomplished fighter with a ton of experience, So like I say, he's 39-2 with 26 KOs. Been in there with some great fighters, like I say. He's been in there and knocked out guys like who did he knock out? He knocked out John Real Casimiro. That's the guy that knocked out Sonny Edwards' brother Charlie. He also knocked out Zolani Tete. Even though these fights were a long, long time ago, this guy has got tons and tons of experience, and no one's wanted to fight him for a long time. But like I say, in the other corner, Sonny Edwards, 15-0 with 4 KOs. It's going to be really interesting here. Really, really interesting. I hope he can do it. It'd be great to get another world champion, especially one from my hometown, properly my hometown of Croydon. So I'd love to see Sonny Edwards pull it off, and I'm going to be tuned in with an eagle eye for sure. I really hope he can do it. It's a big step up, though. Moving out now to the Manchester Arena in Lancashire, United Kingdom. On this card here, let's start with the undercard. Scott Fitzgerald makes his ring return. 14-0, no opponent just yet. Campbell Hatton, 1-0 in a 4-rounder, no opponent just yet. James Tennyson, 28-3. He fights for the vacant IBO World Lightweight title against Giovanni Straffon, who's 23-3 with a draw. A lot of people not happy with this because this guy has kind of been plucked from nowhere. Straffon, he's a Mexican fighter, never been stopped in those 3 losses, and they've came against guys who I've never heard of. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, James Tennyson get in there and do what he does best, which is put it right on someone early and probably get the stoppage quite quick. But this guy's a tough Mexican perhaps, so we shall see. Elsewhere on the card, Katie Taylor, 17-0, defends her WBC, WBA, IBF and WBO female lightweight titles against Natasha Jonas. I've got to be honest, I'd love to see Natasha Jonas win this fight because I think she's been a little bit hard done by recently. And I don't think you can dislike her. I think she's such a positive person for women's boxing. But it's a tall order. It really is. And I'm even perhaps leaning towards Katie Taylor getting the stoppage, which doesn't usually happen. And the reason I say that is because I remember Natasha getting stopped by Vivian Obernauf, the lady that went on to allegedly kill her boyfriend. She's in jail at the minute. I remember her stopping Natasha Jonas, and she's not really a massive puncher, and she certainly doesn't punch with the precision of Katie Taylor, who, by the way, is the lady who is comfortable at this weight. I think this is more Katie's weight than Natasha Jonas, so I'm kind of leaning towards Katie Taylor maybe even getting the stoppage, but I don't see a way she loses to Natasha Jonas, even though Natasha Jonas herself can punch. May the best woman win. I almost said may the best man win. Elsewhere on the card, Dmitry Bivol, 17-0, friend of the show's, defending his WBA World Super Light Heavyweight title against a man we just spoke to a few moments ago, Craig Richards. I'd love to see Craig pull it off. He is 16-1 with a draw. Craig Richards very much up against it, under no illusion that he isn't up against it. He believes that this is a tall order, this is a tough task, and it's probably the hardest fight he's ever going to have been in his career, maybe ever will be in. We shall see. But I'd love him to find a way, and like I said to Craig, we're still a little bit unsure of where his ceiling is. He could do it. He shocked us before. He seems to raise his game when he needs to, but this is the top level of the sport. I'd love to see him be able to find the gear that we've never seen before. That would be something. But it is a tough task. And I understand that. I like both guys. Obviously, Craig's way more my man than Bivol is. But, I hope Craig can somehow do it. It's a huge step up in class, though, from winning a British title last time out. Elsewhere on the card, we have Chris Eubank Jr., 29-2, in a fight against Marcus Morrison, 23-3. I don't like this fight at all, and I say this because Chris Eubank Jr., I don't understand why this guy's had such an up and down career. Not in terms of his wins and losses, but he's had an up and down career in terms of his opponent selection. He went from having a really close fight against Billy Joe Saunders, even I'm talking about that fight there. You were on the card that night, Eddie. He had a really close fight. Did you actually watch that fight, like in the flesh?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so you was out there. At the time, it was a strange one. Do you know what? I'm going to just quickly try to keep it short here, but I remember that night there, and basically I didn't have a ticket because I snuck in. So I was like, this is really kind of embarrassing now, but I snuck into the venue. So I was basically sitting in people's seats, and I was kind of being told, like, they were coming back from the toilet or whatever, and they're saying, hey, you're in my seat. So I had to like move about 10 times trying to blend in and not get thrown out by the security. And, I remember for some reason, the people that were controlling the venue, they accidentally kept all the men's toilets locked. So no one could go to the toilet. And as they do, in parts of London and I guess parts of everywhere, really, people just started urinating on the floor wherever they fancied to. So quite a disgusting thing. But yeah, there was a lot of urine on the floor everywhere. It was disgusting, actually. But anyway, he had a really close fight with Billy Joe. Billy Joe perhaps just nicked it. It was very close. Then he dropped down and boxed the likes of Dmitry Chudanov, Toney Jetta. Then he had a bit of a step up against Gary Spike O'Sullivan. Okay, fair enough. Then he fought Nick Blackwell, and obviously he put Nick Blackwell in a coma, and it's terrible. Then he fought Tom Doran, who never fought again after that. I think he got injured in the fight. I'm not sure. He never ever boxed again. And then he went on this crazy run where he boxed Reynold Quinlan, who was awful. Then he boxed Arthur Abraham. Okay, fair enough. Then he boxed Yildirim because he had to, because he was in the World Boxing Super Series. He beat him nice and easy. Stopped him, obviously, really early. Good win. Then he boxes George Groves. Doesn't get embarrassed. You know, he lost the fight, but didn't get embarrassed. He was coming for Groves in the last round when Groves had dislocated his shoulder. Then after that, the mammoth dropped down in class again to J.J. McDonough. You know, he gets him out there early. It proved nothing. Then he goes back in against James DeGale, who at this point was really a shell of his former self. You know, it's just been so stop-start. Like, he beat James DeGale, fair enough, good win. And then he has the fight with Korobov, which I was looking forward to, and it ended prematurely. You know, we all know what happened there. Korobov got injured. He was possibly going to go on to win the fight because he won the first round. I mean, that doesn't mean much. And then another huge drop down in level to Marcus Morrison. I just can't believe it, really. I mean, Marcus Morrison, you know, he's been beaten by a journeyman. Like, he's got 3 losses. He's lost to Tyan Booth, who at the time was 11-11 with 5 draws. He's lost to Alistair Warren, who was 10-18 with 4 draws. And he got stopped, didn't he? And I'm sure, no, he didn't get stopped in his other one, but he lost to Jason Wellborn as well. So yeah, it's this guy. Like, I like Marcus Morrison, but this is a dangerous fight. You know, when we're talking about someone like Chris Eubank Jr., I don't want to put this out in the atmosphere, but when we're talking about a guy who's put someone in a coma before, I don't like this fight. This is another drop down in level. You know, I don't like this fight. This is a dangerous fight. He takes Marcus Morrison out maybe in a round or 2. I'd be quite surprised if it went past like 4 rounds. I'd be stunned. So I'm going to be betting big on like the first or second round knockout. This is a mismatch beyond belief. You know, he's gone from beating DeGale, you know, beating Matty Korobov by hook or by crook, down to fighting Marcus Morrison. That's no disrespect to Marcus Morrison, but what is Eubank Jr. doing with his career? Why isn't he fighting these big names? He's a big name himself. Why isn't he going for a world title? I just don't understand it. But anyway, forget about him. Let's move on to the main event, Eddie. I'm going to go straight to you because I've done talking for too much on this show already. Derek Chisora, 32-10 in a 12-rounder against Joseph Parker, 28-2. Talk to me.
Yeah, it's a good fight. It's an interesting fight. I mean, obviously, Chisora's not the same Chisora in the beginning. Otherwise, the fight would be even more interesting. But he's still going to bring it. He's still going to beat Derek Chisora. He's still going to come out there and be active and try to be in his face and make the fight as difficult for him as he possibly can. I just don't see him being able to, you know, overcome, you know, the gap and not just age, but just, you know, level where they're competing at this time. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look, of course, Chisora's still trying to compete at the top level, but he's just a shade or 2 below what he used to be. And that's going to be the difference in this fight. I just think that at this stage, Joseph Parker's a little bit too much for him. It's going to be a very interesting fight still. I still think he's going to bring it. He's going to do everything that he possibly can, similar to how he was doing with Dillian. But I just don't think he's going to be able to obviously finish the fight on top. I think Joseph Parker's going to be able to keep him, not so much keep him at bay, because like I said, Chisora's going to keep coming no matter what. But at some point, if he gets a little bit too overzealous with his attack, he can get caught and hurt, and he could be put out. So, you know, it's gonna make the fight exciting for as long as it lasts. But I just see himself making himself a little bit too available for Joseph Parker to land a good shot. And like I said, at this stage, I don't really know if he's going to have the same punch resistance that he had, you know, in years past. So, and look, you know, when you take punches throughout your career and you've been an exciting guy and you've been slinging punches back and forth with guys, your chin doesn't get better as you get older. So, with that being said, I just hope for his sake that he stays out of the way too much of these shots and still can make the fight interesting enough to go to a decision. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm actually thinking that, you know, Parker may get him late. And like I said, it's an interesting fight, but I'd be excited to watch it. I just don't know if Chisora is going to be able to, you know, do what's necessary to win it.
That's an interesting take, actually, because Joseph Parker was on the show a few weeks back, and he's a friend of the show. I want him to win the fight. But I had to tell him honestly, and I think he appreciated it at the time when I said, your last few performances since losing to Dillian Whyte, which was now coming up 3 years ago, you've looked very flat. And of course, he's had the trainer change. He's moved now to Andy Lee. However, it remains to be seen what he looks like under Andy Lee. However, he needs to be the old Joseph Parker who had good feet, who had good skills, who knew when to exchange and when not to. Because Derek Chisora, even though I agree to a degree of what you're saying, you said that he's not the same guy and all that stuff, but he's rebranded himself. He doesn't want to box anymore. He is just coming for a war. That's his new name, Derek War Chisora. Some people are under the illusion that he's completely a new fighter, and I actually had a couple back and forths the other day on Twitter with people that were saying this man is never in a dull fight. Lord almighty, go and check some of his fights. I can name you a few right now if you want. He has never been all action. It's only recently that he's decided to rebrand since he's linked up with David Haye, and David Haye gave him this war nickname. I think Joseph Parker needs to move his feet in this fight. I think he's been working on that. I think Joseph Parker will win, but both men have got brilliant chins. And I can't see it ending in the distance. I actually think this is a really safe bet that it goes the distance. I just think Joseph Parker might shade it. But he needs to be mobile. He can't afford to stand there and bang it out with Chisora, because that really plays into Chisora's hands, even though he's a little bit, long in the tooth.
That doesn't say that he still can't go out there and win a fight. There's no doubt about it. But I just think, watching different things and different performances. Now, losing to Dillian Whyte doesn't say he's down in class or anything like that. But I'm just saying it's just even and actually in that performance, I felt like he did great. He just got caught, going toward the end. But that's my point. He just puts himself in, obviously him saying war Chisora. He wants a war. And for some people and for some cases, that would be good for him. You know what I mean? Because that's his best chance to win. Case in point, this fight, I feel like that's pretty much his best chance to win. And in most fights, that's going to be his best chance. But it also puts him right on the table. You know what I mean? Like dinner, where you can catch him coming in too. And I think that's part of what happened with him and Dillian. And I'm thinking it's going to be similar to that in this fight here. I'm not sure that he's going to stop him, but I feel like that's going to be the difference in the sense that he's going to be able to be more accurate, obviously, and just in overall better, probably move better, box better, and I think it's gonna put him in position to win. I don't know that it goes the distance by decision. I don't know. I just feel like Joseph Parker should be the one to come on the top on this one.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that even Chisora's last fight against Usyk, even though he lost, I think his stocks kind of went up a bit because he really put it on Usyk. And I got to say, I remember saying it to someone at the time. I remember saying if that version of Derek Chisora showed up that he boxed, the version he boxed Usyk with, if that showed up against Anthony Joshua, I don't know. I don't care what anyone says. You can laugh if you want. That I'm not sure about that, man. Putting it on him like that, he can really put it on guys. But Joseph Parker's a big guy himself, and he's used to big guys and stuff. Not like Usyk, I think. But anyway, forget about that. Yeah, that's on pay-per-view, like I say, on Sky. It's £20 to watch that one. You get to see Chisora against Parker in the main event. On the undercard, Dmitry Bivol and Craig Richards, obviously for the world title. Katie Taylor defending all the belts against Jonas. You get a bit of Eubank Jr., a bit of Ricky Hatton's son, Campbell. And if you thought that pay-per-view was bad, which a lot of people are complaining about it, let's go out to Carson, California, where the main event, Andy Ruiz, 33-2, against Chris Arreola, 38-6 with a draw. Eddie, I know that you've got a piggy bank filled up with coins to buy this one, baby.
Do I want to? I already know the outcome right now. I mean, I'm just saying. Look, man, I got all the respect for Chris Arreola. We used to be stablemates. He's a tough guy. You know what I mean? He's marketed himself, obviously, to some degree when he was at his height, to be an interesting fighter, at least to watch and to listen to him speak, even though he said crazy stuff. Mexican-American, so he's definitely a hot commodity in that. But Andy Ruiz is just like, even at the height of his career, I wouldn't have picked him against Ruiz. Ruiz got too much speed, too much ability. He's, if he comes in dedicated like he looks to be, it's going to be a whitewash. That's just in my opinion. I feel like Andy Ruiz is probably as good as, like he's one of the better heavyweights that doesn't have a title right now. And in fact, I see why they're making it a pay-per-view because, like I said, they're both Mexican-American fighters. So it's like they know that they're going to get Mexico. I was like Mexico, but they're going to get the Mexican-Americans to buy this thing. And it's going to do – I guess with them, it's going to do numbers. I don't know how many numbers it's going to do with the rest of the public, but I know with the Mexican-Americans, they're definitely going to be watching if they're boxing fans. So, and even if they're not, because a lot of them know who Ruiz is now. But it's pretty safe to say Ruiz is going to take care of this, especially Arreola at this stage in his career where, he's obviously past where he was at one point. He's still tough. He still wants to make a fight of it, but he's going to be running into a puncher and a guy that has better skills and don't mind standing right in front of you and slinging those shots, as you've seen with, one of the best in the world, Anthony Joshua, he was doing it with. So I just don't see it going any other way. I mean, hey, look, I've been surprised before. It wouldn't be the first time if it went the other way, but I just don't see it happening at this stage. Maybe in the beginning, at the height of his career, maybe he would add a shot, but at this point, I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, and neither do I, to be honest. Chris Arreola well and truly has his best days behind him. Andy Ruiz, I am excited to see what he looks like under his new trainer. He's now training with Canelo's team. But, yeah, it's bad it's a pay-per-view. And obviously Chris Arreola, he wanted to be the first Mexican to win a heavyweight world title. And Andy Ruiz kind of beat him to that. So we shall see. Chris Arreola might turn up really angry. Yeah.
I'm going to say this, Joe. He can show up as angry as he wants. You still got to put them gloves on and fight. And anger does not help you in that kind of a situation.
To be fair, it used to help him. I liked it when he fought Seth Mitchell with anger. He was so pissed at him, and he he knocked his block off, didn't he?
I get it. But see, with Seth Mitchell, and this is no disrespect to Seth, Seth Mitchell, that could work. Because Seth, he was a football player, turned boxer. He had a good couple fights, did some numbers and did some good stuff. You know what I mean, for what he was. And but against a guy like Ruiz, different world, completely different world. So we'll see. You'll see. Well, we know what's going on.
Yeah, no, we do. And elsewhere on the card, Sebastian Fundora, 16-0 with a draw. One of the giants at the weight, obviously 6'5.5" southpaw. That he's at 154, but I think he can make 147. I think. But anyway, say again.
I said, oh my gosh, go ahead, I'm listening.
Yeah, big guy. But the one thing I like about this guy, because you get a lot of these tall, lanky guys and they're not really punchers, but he's actually quite a puncher. So I enjoy that factor about him. Like I say, 16-0 with a draw, 11 KOs. He gets in against Jorge Cota, who is a big banger himself, 27 KOs from 30 wins. He's got 4 losses, however. And those losses came to Jamel Charlo, who was stopped in 3. He lost a split decision to Jason Rosario back in it was just 2 years ago, April 2019. He also lost by KO in 4 to Erickson Lubin. So he's kind of, he's boxed names and he usually loses to the big names, but he is coming off a couple of decent wins. Last time out, his fight that he had last year was against Thomas Lamanna, where he stopped him in 5. That was quite a nice win there. And speaking of Thomas Lamanna, he is on the undercard. He's boxing Erislandy Lara. Erislandy Lara, 27-3 with 3 draws. He fights for the vacant WBA World Middleweight title. Oh, so he's moved up to middleweight, Lara. Okay. Thomas Lamanna, 30-4 with a draw, like I say. Elsewhere on the card, we have friend of the show, former world champion Omar Figueroa, 28-1 with a draw. Always in exciting fights. He's a guy that really is always in exciting fights. He takes on Abel Ramos, who's 26-4 with 2 draws. Ramos coming off a split decision loss over 12 rounds to Yordenis Ugas back in September. Other than that, he's a decent fighter, Ramos. And once upon a time, it's funny because once upon a time he beat a guy who no one knew his name. It's even to this day, no one knows who he boxed back in October of 2018. He stopped this guy in 1 round. No one knows who that guy was. It was a mystery opponent. But yeah, he's generally quite tough, Abel Ramos, as well. That's why I like this fight, because Figueroa's tough. Figueroa always comes to have a war, and like I say, Ramos, he's been in there with like Ivan Baranchik back in the day, Jamal James, Regis Prograis, the only man to have stopped him when he did back in 2015, so a long time ago now. And also Adrian Granados on the card as well against Jose Luis Sanchez. So yeah, some decent name value really on both the pay-per-view events this weekend, even though I don't think either of them are really pay-per-view worthy. I think Eddie Hearn's one's a little bit better than that one in the States. That's just my opinion. But anyways, that is it for the talking part of the show. We've done the review part. We brought you the first guest, Craig Richards. Hopefully he can win a world title this weekend. We did the news part and the preview part just there. It's now time to wrap up all the talking and go over to one of the very best fighters to ever lace them up. It's now time to welcome our second and final guest, the living legend himself, Mr. Roy Jones Jr. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former 4-weight world champion, the living legend himself, Mr. Roy Jones Jr. Roy, welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, thank you, my brother. Glad to be on your show.
Hey, it's a pleasure having you on. So, Roy, I'd like to start this interview the same way I start a lot of these types of interviews. What's your earliest memory in boxing? When did you first put on gloves, Roy?
My earliest memory is back when I saw Muhammad Ali fight Joe Frazier back in '74. I think I was about 5 years old. My father was watching the fight. I started asking my father then, could he teach me how to box, because I felt like what Muhammad Ali was doing was beating Joe Frazier with his mind. And I felt like mentally I could beat anybody with my mind if I just learned how to throw the punches. So I asked my father to teach me how to throw the punches, because I knew that if I could throw the punches, I could beat anybody.
And obviously, you know, you boxed as an amateur. You had somewhere in the region of 134 amateur fights. Roy, tell me, what was your highlight moment of your amateur career? I'm guessing, even though it ended in bad circumstances, it had to be when they stole your gold medal in Seoul, Korea.
Yeah, that was a highlight, but that wasn't my best highlight. My best highlight of my career, honestly, was the first time I went to a national tournament. I went to the National Junior Olympics. And I was 15 years old. I got disqualified in the regionals the year before because I couldn't make weight. So when I got there, I had never been to a national tournament in my life. And the year before, the guy that won, the guy that was in my weight class won it at 112, I think. He beat a very prominent fighter. There was a guy from St. Louis named Lavelle Finger. So Lavelle and Terrell Finger were twins. They were two of the big names in boxing from the St. Louis area at that time, and everybody knew who they were. Well, this kid had beaten Lavelle, I think, in the finals the year before, the year that I got disqualified in the region. So I never knew what a national tournament even was. I never knew nothing about a national tournament. But these guys had already been to the nationals because they went the year before when I got disqualified in the region. So when I went, I made it the next year, and I had a point to prove because I had gotten disqualified. I had a chip on my shoulder. So when I get there, everybody was talking, you know, and it's like I battled my way. And when I fought against the St. Louis team that night, I was in the bathroom one night, the night before the weigh-in, and I was weighed about 123. And all the guys, like 25 guys left from St. Louis. They're like, yeah, you're going to need that weight tomorrow. You're going to need that weight tomorrow. So I was like, wow. So it was just me in there with 25 of them. So I couldn't do a whole lot of talking. So I just kept on going, kept on getting dressed. And as I got dressed, I put my stuff on. I was like, yeah, we do fight tomorrow, huh? And I said, yeah. So I just walked on out. Well, the next day, I beat him worse than I beat anybody at the tournament because they talked to me that night, and there were 25 of them. But now you're in there by yourself with me. You ain't got 25 of y'all. So now what you going to do? And I punished him for all the words that they said to me the night before. That was one of my highlights of my career. So anyway, I ended up going on and winning the National Junior Olympics that year. That was my very first time ever at a national tournament, and I won it. And that was a whole lot. That was saying a lot because I really didn't have a full view and understanding of what national meant, because I was from a small place called Pensacola, Florida. And I was young, so I had never really heard of nothing but teams going to state. I never heard of a high school team going to national. I just heard of high school teams going to state. So I thought state was everything. I won state Golden Gloves here a couple times, and a lot of times actually. And I was like Alabama State Golden Glove champion. So I'm like, state is cool, but when they said national, I had no idea what national. It just never registered to me that was the whole nation. So when I got there, I was in shock. But I won it, and I won most outstanding boxing in my division, the middle division. So it was quite an accomplishment, because that let me know that I was somebody, I was a formidable opponent, and that they was going to have to deal with me, because I won the Nationals my first time out. Nobody does that. You win a tournament that you don't even understand. You understand me? I didn't even understand truly what national meant, and I still won it, because I had a chip on my shoulder from getting disqualified in the regionals the year before.
There we go. That's a beautiful story, Roy. That really is. And I wanna look back at your pro career. Let's start really briefly with your pro debut. Actually, you turned pro May 6th, 1989, against Ricky Randall. You stopped him in 2. Do you remember much about coming out for your debut?
Yeah, I was very excited. Everybody was so happy to see me fighting again since the Olympics had happened to me. Everybody wanted to see how I was going to carry on after having that tragic thing happen to me. So I had a bit of a lot to prove, because people want to know, is he going to be the same? Is he going to be different? Is he going to be the Roy Jones we know? Is he going to develop into anything, or is he going to let that get to him the rest of his career, and is he going to be a flop? So there was a lot of questions that I needed to answer. And we had scheduled 8 rounds, and my debut was scheduled for 8 rounds, I think. And I was ready to go 8 rounds, but if I got a chance to get him out, I would. So when I got an opportunity, I got him out.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's skip ahead to January 10th, 1992. At this point, you're 15-0 with 15 KOs. You boxed that night in New York at the Paramount Theatre. You took on former WBC welterweight world champion Jorge Vaca. Now, this guy had 48 wins at the time. So on paper, much more pro experience than yourself. But this as well was by far the toughest fight of your career at that point. But you became the quickest man to stop him. You took him out in just 1 round, man. Tell me about that.
Man, I was so good, and I knew that I would get him, because he was strong, and he was smart, and he was gonna wait for me to wear it down. And when I started seeing shots at his chin, I said, "Oh wow, I can see his chin pretty good." So I realized he jab and keep his right hand low. I said, if he jabs, I'm gonna give him a jab and swap it for a left hook. So I gave him a jab, and as he threw his jab, I kind of went with the jab to my left side. I came back to my left side with a thundering hook to the right side and took him out. 1 shot, 1 round.
It was a left hook from hell, that shot there. After the after the Vaca fight, you put together 5 wins, one of which came to Jorge Castro, the first man to ever take you the distance. Then we arrive at May 22nd, 1993. At this point, you're 21-0 with 20 KOs. You box for the vacant IBF middleweight world title against future 7-time world champion Bernard Hopkins. This would be the first time you ever went 12 rounds. You were able to beat him unanimously. Tell me, Roy, about the night you beat Bernard Hopkins and won the IBF. Your right was hurt. You beat him with the left.
That's right. That's exactly what happened. And I knew my right hand was messed up before the fight, but I had to have it. It was a good fight. Bernard could box, and I knew Bernard was a good boxer, but I just knew that he wasn't on my caliber. He wasn't on my level, so he was not my caliber fighter. So I told him before the fight, I said, look, if you can deal with my speed, you might have a chance. I said, with my speed, I'm fast as shit. Now I said, if you deal with speed, your chances are good, but I'm probably fast as your stuff. He didn't believe it, and he didn't take heed to it, and that's what I killed him with.
And how did it feel to become world champion? Because I'm guessing for someone as talented as you, Roy, you probably always thought you could become a world champion. But what was it like? Describe that feeling for me, the first time.
To be honest with you, it was a weight lifted off my shoulders, because when you turn professional as a boxer, your whole goal is to become a world champ. If you don't ever become a world champ, then you never really accomplish anything. It's worse than guys in the NBA, because in the NBA, guys want to get a ring, but it takes a good team to get a ring. In boxing, you get that ring by yourself. So if you can't get that ring, nobody else failed you but yourself. The management didn't fail you, the team didn't fail you, the city didn't fail you, the franchise didn't fail you. Nobody fails you in boxing but yourself.
Yeah. And after beating Hopkins, you have 3 back-to-back non-title bouts just above 160. You win all 3, including one over future 2-time super middleweight world champion Talani Sugarboy Malinga. Your first defense of the IBF came on May 27th, 1994 at the MGM Grand against former middleweight world champion Thomas Tate. Now, Thomas Tate had 2 years prior gone 12 rounds with one of the hardest punchers of all time for me, Julian Jackson. But it only took you 2 rounds to get him out of there, and no one ever did that. Tell me about that. Another left hook from hell.
Yeah, Julian Jackson was a very strong puncher, but I was different. It was like what made me and Mike Tyson different was Julian Jackson and Tammy Hearn were very strong punchers. Me and Mike Tyson were very explosive punchers. So it wasn't so much that there was strong power as it was the explosiveness. We had speed behind our punches. So it made different things happen. So guys that other guys couldn't knock out, we could because we had explosiveness. If you're explosive with your power, it makes a whole different ball game. So I knew the Hawk was a very strong puncher. He's probably one of the strongest middleweight punchers of all time. But I'm probably the most explosive middleweight puncher of all time. That's why I knew I could take Thomas Tate out.
Yeah, and like I say, no one ever stopped Thomas Tate aside from you. After that fight, you made the move to 168. November 18th, 1994, you challenge for the IBF super middleweight world title against the undefeated champion at the time, James Toney. Now, you were the underdog for this fight, which you know. You'd end up winning the fight unanimously over 12 rounds, but tell me about the fight itself and, of course, the left hook that James Toney got.
Yeah, a sucker move I stole from a Gamecock. Y'all must have forgot. Well, what happened was I knew James Toney had copied several of my moves in fights that he saw previous before we fought. So if you copy my moves, that means you know you're not better than me. I must be better than you, or you're going to be copying my moves. But I also knew that he didn't start boxing until late age, so he couldn't be as good as me. You know what I'm saying? So he was good, but he couldn't be technically as sound as I was. Well, I've been fighting since I was 10 years old. He only started at 17 or 18. So when I saw him copying my moves, that made me realize right there that he knew that I was better than him. So he was the man at the time, and I know to be the man, you got to beat the man. So I knew I could beat the man, but I knew to get him in front of me. Well, you got to also avoid his power shot because he was a very confident knockout puncher. He was knocking a lot of guys out, and he had confidence. He knocked guys out around 1 through 12. He knocked Prince Charles Williams out, I think, in around 12. A really good fight. So the guy had explosive punching power. He had an immaculate defense, much of like Floyd with a shoulder roll, but the only difference was he had a shoulder roll that had thunder behind it. He didn't have a shoulder roll that just played defense. His shoulder roll had thunder behind it. So I knew that too. So I went into the fight knowing that I got to go out here and first I got to set the pace, make him know that I'm not afraid of him, make him know that I'm not who you think I am, and that I'm going to give him and teach him the lesson, not him teach me. So by the third round, I had kind of threw my hand. He was still trying to get close. He hadn't got there, so he hadn't really showed a lot yet. And it was a momentum swing. I knew I had to do something to have the momentum of the fight. If I didn't feel the momentum right there, the fight still could have gone his way. Because I was winning the fight on the scorecard, but he hadn't conceived yet that I was better than him. He still thought he had a chance because he thought if he could just catch up with me, he had a chance to just knock me out. So that third round, I said, it's getting a little bored. Let me see if he'll copy me again like he copied me in his previous fight. So I gave him the rooster move with the hand down and gave that to him. I said, I got him now. So I gave it to him again, and as he went to give that to him again, I jumped out with a leap to the left hook. Boom! When I went to the other side of the ring, only the ropes held him up, which is why the referee gave him an 8 count. And from that point, I knew I had him because I took the moment. I seized the moment when there was time for a momentum swing. I seized that moment, and that was the end of the fight, basically.
And your first defence of that title came March 18th, 1995 against former world title challenger Antoine Bird. You boxed him at the Civic Centre in Pensacola. You dispatched of him in the very first round. Again, no one ever did anything like that to Antoine Bird. Do you want to give me a word or two on that fight there, Roy?
Well, Antoine Bird came to Pensacola at the press conference. We had a press conference on the beach. We overlooked the Gulf. We were overlooking the Gulf. And that man said he does not see me as a world champion. I said, well, for him to get up and say he doesn't see me as a world champion, and like me I'm standing here on this podium and don't see a Gulf of Mexico out there, and I don't know there's sharks out there in that water. I'm just going to go out there and be disrespectful to that water. That's what he's telling me. So tomorrow night, I'll teach him a little bit of respect. And come that night, I taught him some respect.
Yeah, you certainly did. And your second defence of that title came June 24th, 1995 in Atlantic City against former two-weight world champion Vinny Pazienza. You were able to stop the Tasmanian Devil in round 6 after dropping him 3 times. It was a great fight while it lasted, actually, but tell us about that one, Roy.
I just felt bad. I really didn't want to fight that. And the only reason I took the fight was because they gave my friend Derek Morgana a USBA title shot on the undercard. And then I'd done that, and I wasn't trying to buy my mother a house, I would have never taken a fight against Vinny Pazienza because I was afraid I was going to hurt his neck again. I knew he was good, but I knew that I could hit him at will. There was nobody that I thought I couldn't hit at will because I was so fast. So, and then the 6th round, when I dropped him with the right hand, I think I dropped him first with the right hand. Then he fell again. I hit on a slight right hand, but he really fell from fatigue. So I held my hands out. The referee said, boxing, like, look, referee, he's fatigued, but you want me to finish him? I'm going to finish him, but he's done. So I held my hands up and said, okay, I didn't do this. You asked for it. So I hit him with, like, I think a 5 or 6 punch combination at the end there. That was probably 5 or 6 of the most prolific punches that I threw in my boxing career because I could have really did devastation with either one of those punches. I only threw him half speed because I wasn't trying to re-break his neck. So and I still was afraid after the fight that I might have injured him because of the angles that I got on him. But I was really trying not to hurt him.
Yeah, he's a good guy, Vinny, and yeah, he came, like I
Very
say,
good guy.
Came and gave it a go. He was brave. He was very brave. But yeah, that's the fight where you you just shrugged your shoulders and said, okay.
The referee, I don't want to do this, but if you tell me to, okay, I got to.
Now, the third title defense came on September 30th against Toney Thornton in Pensacola. Thornton had twice been unsuccessful in the past fighting for world titles. He lost on points to Chris Eubank and James Toney. Would it be third time lucky for him? No, of course it wasn't. You stopped him in the 3rd round, funny enough. Tell us about that one as well, Roy.
Well, I set him up for a move. I set him up in round 2 for a jab up, jab down. As a matter of fact, I started in round 1. Set him up for a jab up, jab down. And I knew that he was a good fighter, a very solid fighter, could take a good punch. But we in Pensacola, I'm not trying to go the distance with you. So I started setting up, jab down. Castro, the only guy with the distance with the Pensacola, I think, at that time. So I'm like, no, he got to get out of here. So I set him up to jab down. Every time I jab down, he was dropped the right hand. So I did it a couple times, round 2, so round 3, I come back and I set him up for it again. And he did the same thing. So I jabbed and looked down the 3rd time and came up with the hook, and bingo, there it was.
There it was. And the 4th defense, Jacksonville, June 15th, 1996, against, again, future WBC super middleweight world champion Eric Lucas. He retired on his store at the end of round 11. He didn't come out for the final round. What do you remember about that one, Roy?
I done that before that just to prove that a boxer could also be a two-sport person as well. Boxing wasn't one-dimensional. We ain't on the air. There's other people we can do other things too if we given the opportunity. So I was given the opportunity. So I played a basketball game that morning, and I fought Eric Lucas that night, like you said, who went on to become the WBC super middleweight champion of the world. So it wasn't like I was doing this to people who couldn't box. These guys were champions, former champions, guys who had title shots or future champions. And I still made them look like they really wasn't that caliber of me, but that's to show you what the pound-for-pound guy should do to them.
And that's where I think that line comes in on Yo Must Have Forgot, where you say, what's the line? They say I don't fight nobody.
They got there to say I don't fight nobody. I just make them look like nobody. Y'all must have forgot.
That's it. I love that line because this is one of those guys I think that people probably thought that about.
Exactly.
Your 5th world title defense came against the undefeated Brian Brannan. This one was Friday, October 4th. You knocked Brannan out in just the 2nd round once again, another early finish. Do you want to say a couple words on that, Roy?
Well, yeah, he wanted to fight early, so we fought early. You feel me? He wanted to make it a dog fight right away, so we made the dog fight right away. Sometimes be careful what you ask for because you just might get it.
Oh, gosh. Your next fight, you decide to make the move up to light heavyweight, and in your first fight at that weight, you boxed the former light middleweight, and light heavyweight world champion Mike McCallum. Now, you didn't stop him, but you didn't lose a single round over 12. Tell me what you remember about that night back in November 1996, of course, at the Ice Palace.
I didn't stop him by choice. He was a guy that I looked up to my whole career, who I thought a lot of, who I respected highly. And I knew he fought James Toney. At the time when I fought him, he was in a situation he needed a little help, and I told him I'd fight him just to give him a little help. You know what I mean? I didn't want to fight him because he was a guy that I thought a lot of and I idolized a little bit, you know. So, but I knew I was better than him, but I still I thought a lot of him because so many people ducked him in his prime. He never got to fight Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns of the world because they all wouldn't fight him in his prime. And nobody ever notes that, but all those guys went around him. You know what I'm saying? They never would face him. So the body snatcher deserved it. He fought 2 good fights with James Toney as an old man and did good with James Toney. So he asked for a little help. He said he needed a payday. He said, okay, I'll do that. So I gave him the fight. Around 10, however, he felt like he started feeling like he had something. He started feeling like he had figured me out. And I think he may have thought I was going to get the worst, least thing that was going to happen to me. So around 10, he started coming to harder, so I had to sit him down for a minute. But after I sit him down, he realized I could have set him down at will, and he got back in the place when he had to fight. So I wasn't trying to hurt Mike McCallum. I thought Mike McCallum was an old man at that time, and I shouldn't be fighting him. But because he said he needed the money, I wanted to fight him, and I appreciate it because I was trying to do him a favor. And I wasn't out there expect him to give me the fight, but if he got a hand, I was going to put him back in the place. So around 10, he got a hand, so I had to kind of put him back in place, and then he was okay from that point.
And after that, you're elevated to full WBC light heavyweight world champion. And in your first defense, you boxed in Atlantic City against an undefeated fighter. This was the night your win streak would come to an end, which was 34-0.
It didn't really come to an end. It came to a halt because the commission chose for it to come to a halt. Because Dana Rosenblatt hit Benny Pazienza hit Dana Rosenblatt after the bell, and he hit the referee. And all that, and didn't get disqualified in Atlanta City, New Jersey. Riddick Bowe hit Jesse Ferguson after he was down, probably 2 times after he was down, and he didn't get disqualified in Atlanta City, New Jersey. I hit Montell Griffin once, waiting on the referee to stop. The referee don't say nothing, so I hit him again, and they immediately disqualified me because I have a clean record. Wow, ain't that ironic? The guy, the nicest guy of all, the guy who's already been robbed at the Olympics, the guy who does nothing bad to know who feels bad for how hard he hits people at times. Now you're going to disqualify him when he's the one guy who you know ain't going to try to do nothing bad to a person. And then on top of it, Montell Griffin going to go out and talk like he really beat me, like he went out and dominated the fight and won? Are you kidding me? So the second fight, they brought out the RJ. And that's what happens when you bring out the RJ.
Yeah, because like we say, you avenged the loss in just 1 round.
Just August. I just refought the last round over. The same round he quit in, I told him just going to refight that round. And I told that before the fight. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it was devastating, that first round. August, obviously, in Connecticut. 5 months later, as you say, in the rematch, you needed your crown. 1 punch and he sat down.
One punch and he sat down.
That was really impressive, by the way, because Montell, even though the fight obviously didn't end the way it should have ended. I think we can agree on that. But he was a good fighter, man. He was a good fighter. The way you took him out in the second fight was wow. On to the next one. The next one was a non-title fight. I'm trying to focus more on the world title fights of your career, but I think it's only right we mention this one here. It took you only 4 rounds to beat this guy. He was, of course, the former IBF and 2-time WBA light heavyweight world champion and future 2-time cruiserweight world champion. Tell me about the night you stopped Virgil Hill with a body shot.
Well, Virgil was a very good puncher, very different type of guy, a very smart guy, had a really good jab. It was different because him having that good of a jab was something I had never seen before. And so I knew that he was good, he was strong, and he was physically bigger than me, but I knew that he wasn't that strong in the body. So I kept on throwing a hook right here at his head to make him think I was trying to knock him out with a headshot. I kept fooling him. Then when I got him set up to think I was trying to go for the head, I attacked the body vigorously and took him out.
Yeah, that's another great win. Like I say, he went on to move up in weight and win world titles there. This brings us nicely into July 18th, 1998 at the Madison Square Garden. You unified the WBC title with the then WBA world champion Lou DeVal. You'd go on to become unified champion after outpointing Lou over 12 rounds, despite getting dropped for the first time in your career. Tell me about that one, boy.
Well, that's why I used to tell people always you don't fight sparring partners. So you spar with them, you teach them how to deal with you. So they learn so much more about you than you do about them because you just use them for sparring to get the rounds in. They're actually learning from you. And that's a typical example of how that goes. That's why I used to always say I don't want to fight the sparring partner. That's why I stopped sparring Reggie Johnson. I stopped sparring with him. I sparred with him one time back in 1991. I went 1 round. I got out. My dad said, "What you doing?" I said, "I'm done." He said, "Why?" Because if he gets to become world champion, I want that. And you ain't going to be around to tell me I can't get it. So if it happens, that's what's going to happen. And I don't want to have to tell him, but no, I don't want to fight him because I spar with him. So That's kind of what that was.
And the fight after that came on November 14th against former WBO middleweight world champion Otis Grant. The fight took place in Connecticut. Tell us about the night you defended successfully the unified titles by stopping him in the 10th, Roy. Good win again.
You know, it was a good win, but Otis was a small guy. He was a middleweight, really. He never really was a super middle or light heavy, but he came up with a challenge because he wanted to make some money, and I was the man at the time. And because he became WBA champ, I had nothing but the utmost respect for him, so I gave him a shot, but I knew he was going to be too small for me.
And then I think after that was the Richard Frazier fight in Pensacola. You had him down in the first and the second. January 9th, 1999. A couple words on that?
I want to say that was the one that was the Richard Frazier. I don't remember much about Richard Frazier, so...
Yeah, let's move on from that. June the 5th, 1999, you held the WBC and WBA titles. You unified again, this time with the IBF champion. The fight took place in Mississippi. You won unanimously over 12. Tell me about the night you became champion of 3 organizations, the night you beat Reggie Johnson and took his light heavyweight title from him.
That was the night that I've seen what God's word really come to fruition. Because I stopped fighting Reggie Johnson in 1991. About one round, I got him because I knew I could beat him. And it's strange because God was telling me in my soul that you shouldn't teach this guy to deal with you because you may fight him. 1997, guess what happened? We fight. And the same thing I did to him in round 1 in Pensacola sparring, I did to him for 12 more rounds in Biloxi, Mississippi in a real fight. But I thank God that he talked to me and told me different than my father, different than anybody else could have told me. Because God said that you don't need to be sparring this guy because you're going to fight him. And guess what happened? I fought him and beat him. Yeah. And if you go back and look at that fight, take your time and go in slow motion and watch the left hook right hand that I knock him down with. There's no way that you're supposed to hit a guy with 2 hands, opposite hands, on the same side of the face. This stuff happens so fast. With left hook on the left side of his face, on the right side of his face, and the straight right hand on the right side of his face. It happened so fast that his face couldn't get back in time when you hit him on opposite sides like you're supposed to. Craziest, fastest combination I've ever landed in a fight.
And that brings us into the year 2000. At this point, you're 40-1. January 15th in New York, you defend successfully all 3 belts against David Telasco. He really asked for it, Roy.
He did. He asked for it. They followed me around asking me to fight for quite some time. And the first time I offered him to fight back, he was like, I can't be ready in 3 weeks. I'm like, why would you keep asking me about a fight or follow me around asking me to fight when I come and get you, you ain't ready? Okay, so I tell you what. If I come again, you ain't ready, I ain't coming no more. So I told you to stay ready. I'll get you when I get a chance. Now I got the opportunity to get you and you don't want it. So now next time I come, we're ready. So January 15th, we scheduled the fight. December 9th, I jump on my motorcycle, my lower, and fracture my left wrist. My wrist is fractured, and everybody said me, you should pull out of the fight. I'm like, I'm fighting for the first time ever, boxing in Radio City Music Hall. Whitney Houston would be there the same God does America. Method Man, the Red Man, would be walking me out. If you think I'm pulling out, you crazy. If God meant for me to pull out, I would have broke my hand and beat. So fractured, I can beat David Telasco. If I beat Benoit Hopkins with one hand, why can't I beat David Telasco with one hand? Now I know it's the other hand, or it's the busy hand, but still, if I can beat Benoit with my busy hand, why can't I beat David Telasco with my left busy hand? And that's what happened.
The next fight took place May 13th in Indianapolis. You knocked out in round 11 the big punch in southpaw Richard Hall. Do you remember much about that night there, Roy?
That was one of the funnest nights I ever had because I had Mystical rapping with me in the ring, and it was a really fun night. Richard Hall was a big puncher, but the problem he had was that, well, yeah, he's a big puncher, but you got to be able to hit it in order to knock it out. And I knew he couldn't hit me.
And, of course, your next defence would also be successful. You boxed Eric Hardin, who had previously beaten Montel Griffin. In the fight, right before fighting you, he also took Antonio Tarver, though. The night you fought him, though, New Orleans, he retired on his store at the end of the 10th, September 9th, 2000. Do you remember that one, Roy?
His arms. First time in a long time that they seen a fighter do what the old school fighters used to do, by beating his arms. I beat his arms so bad that he couldn't take it no more. You know what I mean? That's pretty fascinating because how many guys of this era do you know that are disciplined enough to commit to and stick to beating a guy's arms for 10 rounds?
No, another brilliant win, like I say. Now we're in 2001, February. You box in Tampa against the 20-1 Southpaw Derek Harmon. Harmon's corner stopped it after the 10th. What do you remember about that one, Roy?
I remember that he was a pretty good fighter. I knew he was a pretty good fighter, but I was getting too fast for him. And I think he ruptured his eardrum around 8 times. That's what ultimately caused me to stop the fight.
Roy, let me just quickly say the signal is a tiny bit in and out. Just a tiny bit. The next one came on July 28th, 2001 at the Staples Center against future WBO light heavyweight world champion, the undefeated 27-0 Julio Cesar Gonzalez. Again, you're pretty much able to shut him out over 12 rounds. Do you want to say a couple words on that one, Roy?
Yeah, Julio Cesar Gonzalez was a very big guy, a very strong puncher who would take a whole lot. But you got to know when you're fighting a Mexican opponent that they're known for their toughness and their chin.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I say, he was one of the few guys at that point that went the distance with you. The title defense after that came in Miami, February 2nd, 2002, against the undefeated Australian Glenn Kelly. You took him out in the 7th. Another one.
Yeah, it was another, but it was a really good fight, but I had beat him so much that I had to finally back and let him. I had to put my hand behind my back in order to get him to punch so that I could counterpunch and get him out. I hit him with every counterpunch that you could be hit with throughout the 8-round period, so he got discouraged and he didn't want to punch anymore.
Beautiful, man. And your next fight, September 7th in Portland, Oregon, against future IBF light heavyweight world champion, the UK's very own Clinton Woods. You were able to knock him out in the 6th. Do you remember much about that? He was a tough guy, Clinton, man.
Another very good fighter, very tough guy. I knew the body shots were having an effect on him early, but he was a very tough fighter. Made me bring my A game because I knew that he was game and that he was going to come at me all night.
6 months later in Vegas, when you made the jump up to heavyweight to fight the reigning WBA heavyweight world champion at the time, John Ruiz, you weighed in at 193. Ruiz, of course, came in at 226. You were given away, like I say, 33 pounds in weight. You broke a record by becoming the only fighter ever to start off at 154 pounds and to go on and win a heavyweight world title when you outpointed Ruiz over 12. I still cannot believe it. Like, that's just such a crazy achievement, man. Tell me about that, Roy. Amazing.
Well, I just wanted to make history. I was doing everything I could do in my lower weight class, but I realized it had been over 106 years since somebody had gone from middleweight championship to heavyweight championship, and to be able to do that after turning pro as a junior middleweight. Nobody had ever achieved that accomplishment after turning pro as a junior middle. So it was a whole lot of opportunities to make history. I felt like I was the best boxer doing it, and if there's anyone that could make history, just like how when I played the basketball game and boxed the same day, if there was any boxer that could do something different, I felt like it was me, so I shot out to do it. And I did.
And Roy, was it always the plan to only have one fight at heavyweight?
Why put that kind of pressure on my body? You know, it's like if you look at Chris Bird. When Chris Bird came back down to light heavyweight, look how quick he got taken advantage of.
Yeah. I had Chris on a few months ago. A lot of people said that they wished now that you know, if they look back, if they could go back in time, a lot of people wish that you'd retired after beating Ruiz and kept your record 48-1.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that, Roy?
Yeah.
If you could go back in time.
I thought I should did that too, but the problem with that was that they'd already given me one loss. And so when you got one loss, what difference does it make? You retired one loss, okay, cool. What's different than one loss and 5 or 6 losses? And I wasn't supposed to have no losses. They disqualified me and gave me a bull crap loss. So if you a bull crap loss, what's the use? And then I was kind of misinformed because I thought that the great what's the guy that won the light heavyweight? Bob Patimus. I thought Bob Patimus won the middleweight, light heavyweight, then recaptured the light heavyweight. I know he won middleweight, light heavyweight. I know he won middleweight, heavyweight, then light heavyweight. So I thought I had to go do exactly the right way he did it and go win all 3 up, then come down and recapture the light heavyweight title. So that's why I did it that way.
And like I say, you made the move when you made the move to heavyweight, you vacate the IBF and WBC world titles at 175. You kept the WBA. After winning the heavyweight world title, you dropped back down, like you say, 8 months later in Las Vegas against the man who picked up your 2 vacated belts, Antonio Tarver. Antonio had to vacate the IBF to for the fight to take place. So ultimately, it was for his new WBC title, which you'd vacated, and your WBA, which you were able to hold on for. This meant, it was yet another unification fight on your record. You were able to beat Antonio Tarver by split decision after 12 that night, November 2003. Tell me about it, Roy.
It was a rough night. I was weak as I ever been in a fight. First time ever in a fight that I didn't have the energy to do what I wanted to do. So it was the first time that I had to rely on something that I teach my fighters. We never want to rely on it, but if we need to rely on it, it's there. And that's that night I had to prove that. So that night I had to rely on my heart because I didn't have enough energy to operate with the skill, but I did have the heart. I had to rely on my heart to pull me through. My heart pulled me through definitely.
And the rematch obviously took place 6 months later at the same venue, the Mandalay Bay. This brings us obviously to May 2004. This time you get stopped in the second round and dethroned of the titles. You got caught with a left hook with your feet squared up, I feel. Is there anything else to add to that one, Roy?
No, that was it, man. It was just tough. I should let my body regroup after I came back down light heavyweight, but I didn't give my body enough time to regroup.
And only 4 months later, you returned to the ring in Memphis, Tennessee, against the reigning IBF world champion Glenn Johnson. On this occasion, you're stopped in the 9th. A bad performance from you there, Roy. What's your thoughts on that?
That was just dehydration. Same thing. Should have given my body more time to recover after I came back from heavyweight. Gained all that weight and muscle, and then took it all off and didn't give my body enough time to recover.
Now we arrive at October 1st of 2005. You're coming off, at this point, just over a year of inactivity. You end up having that third fight with Antonio Tarver in Tampa, this time a unanimous decision loss. Roy, give me a couple words on that fight, and also, do you kind of view this portion of your career there being past your best or just a rough patch?
No, I was past my best at that time. I didn't really have anything else I really wanted to do. I just fight. A, I don't care to fight. I'll fight anybody in the time. B, boxing was what I loved, and boxing loved me, so I just still giving the sport what I could, But I didn't have no goals. I should have had goals at that point. What I realized before that point was that, right after that point, I should say, is that if you don't have a goal, then what's your reason for doing it? So if I didn't have a goal in the first time fight, I would have lost that fight because I had a goal to regain the lightweight title. That's why I didn't lose the fight. Had I not had a goal, I had nothing to dig down deep for. I probably would have lost the first fight. But I didn't because I had a goal. And I accomplished that goal, and that was the last goal I had set for myself in boxing. We went to win the heavyweight title, then come back and recapture our heavyweight title, and that was it. And I probably should have stopped right there, but I didn't. All the fights after that, they were good. The Joe Calzaghe, all the other fights, they were good fights. They were decent fights. And they were because I don't duck and dodge nobody. You know what I'm saying? That's the reason for those fights, most of them. I don't duck and dodge nothing. And that's what I was fighting for at that point. I hadn't set a new goal.
Let me touch on a couple of those you mentioned there, Roy. Obviously, 9 months after that fight, you pick up 2 wins, the first in Idaho, the second in Mississippi, against 2 decent guys, to be honest. That's when you get the call to fight January 19th, 2008 at the Madison Square Garden against Felix Trinidad. Now, albeit Trinidad was coming off almost 3 years out the ring, but you're able to outpoint him and add another fine name to your win list, That was a great win as well.
Well, it was a great win, but I had torn a bicep the week before the fight. So that's when my body was starting to break apart and deteriorate because the week before the fight, I tore my left bicep. He never would have lasted as long as he did had I not had a torn bicep. But I knew he was too small to really cause the problem. So that's why that was an easy win. It looked like a brilliant fight, but it really wasn't because I had a torn left bicep the whole time. Okay,
wow. I didn't know that, man. 10 months after that, you're back again in Madison Square Garden, like you said, against the undefeated former unified super middleweight world champion Joe Calzaghe. You had him down in the first round, but obviously you end up losing a decision over 12. How good was Joe Calzaghe in your opinion, Roy, and how would he have matched up with you perhaps a few years earlier on?
Skill, he couldn't have matched up with me at all, but he had a very good work rate, and that's what saved him. So that work rate at my age at that point, it was much higher than my work rate. So, and I wasn't as sharp as I was in my prime to really be able to catch him again with a sharp shot. So once he got warmed up, you could hardly catch him because he wasn't a bad fighter at all, but he had a really high work rate. His offense was his defense. In my prime, he wouldn't have had a chance because if I can get you down, I'm going to get you out because I was so fast and so on point. At that point, it was good. It was a great fight by him. I don't take nothing from him. It was a great night for him. He did a great job. But like I said, in my prime, no, he would not have had a chance with me.
And again, after that, you bounced back once again with 2 good wins, to be honest. A 5th round knockout win over 4-time world title challenger Omar Sheikha. After that, you become the first man to ever stop Jeff Lacey when you did so in round 10. But like we say, after that, your best days, were well and truly over by then. The 3 losses in a row, especially that first one to Danny Green, and then the points lost to Bernard. Then the loss to Lebedev. Do you want to say anything on any of those, Roy?
No, they were good fights. Those guys had great nights those nights, and that's just what it was.
And again, after that, you still went on to have 13 pro fights after that. And, there's only one I really want to go into. After those 3 back-to-back losses, you put together an 8-fight win streak before boxing in Moscow against former cruiserweight world champion Enzo Maccarinelli. Now, to this day, Enzo tweets on Twitter jokingly, like to annoy people, that he beat a prime Roy Jones Jr., which he obviously didn't. And it really annoys people, Roy, because, there's haters that are stupid enough to actually take it seriously. I'm wondering if I can get you to simply just say the words, Enzo Maccarinelli beat me in my prime, just to send it to him so he can troll these guys.
No, I would never say that.
After the Enzo fight, though, Roy, you gathered a further 4 wins before retiring in 2018 with a record officially 66 wins, 47 by KO, and just 9 losses. I want to go through some real quick questions before we wrap it up, if that's okay, Roy.
Yeah, right.
What was your most satisfying win of all those wins you had?
The second fight against Marcel Griffin because they robbed me again, and that was the first time I've been robbed after the Olympics. Mother took my O away from me, and that made me really, really angry and upset because people didn't understand what that O meant. Had they not took that O from me then, I probably still be undefeated now because I could have retired after winning the heavyweight title, and definitely after winning that first fight with Tarver, I could have retired and been undefeated. That would have worked out better for me, but to be able to go back and take that back was the most satisfying victory probably of my career.
And Roy, you could punch hard yourself. You were real explosive. Who would you say, though, was the hardest puncher you've ever been hit by in all those fights?
Pound the hardest puncher I fought was Murky Sosa.
Was who, sorry?
Murky Sosa.
Oh, wow, okay. I didn't expect you to say that.
Murky Sosa was the hardest puncher, and James Toney was the best boxer.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you as well, Roy, if you could go back and change anything at all, have you got any regrets now looking back?
None whatsoever.
And that's the best answer. I love when people tell me that because that is the best answer. It's obviously not good to live with all these regrets. Mm-hmm. And Roy, who was... I think you kind of answered this question. I was going to say, who's the best all-round fighter you ever boxed? Yeah, James Toney. Okay.
James Toney, by far.
Is there anyone, Roy, is there anyone that you wish you'd have had the chance to fight, but for whatever reason it didn't happen during your career? But you did box everyone, like I say.
I probably boxed everybody that I could, but I would have loved to have fought Steve Collins and Nigel Benn and even Chris Eubank Sr. But those have been great fights, but I tried to do my best, and they just never happened. So, and not in my prime. Later on, they try to get, like last year, they try to get me to fight Ben. It's crazy at this point, but in our primes, I did try to fight him.
Wow, man. You against Nigel Benn would have been exciting, man. That's for sure. I want to ask you as well, Roy, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. Who comes to mind if I ask who's your favourite UK fighter of all time? Any era, any generation, who springs to mind?
That's Nassim Hamed.
Okay. That's the most popular answer, man. Everyone says him. What did you like about him? Obviously, all the showmanship.
Showmanship. He gave the world something different, like I did.
Yeah. Okay. And just finally, Roy, we've whizzed through everything pretty quickly there. what's your closing message just to the listeners? Obviously, over here in the UK, man, I don't have to tell you, people love you over here, man. They absolutely love you. What's your message to those guys that supported you your whole career?
I love everybody in the UK that supported my whole career. I thank you guys. You guys love and understand boxing. I love you guys for that. Thank you. And I'm sorry that I never got a chance to perform there in my prime. But with things going the way they are, with these exhibitions and old fights coming back, it's still very possible that we might be able to make that happen. So if I ever get the opportunity, and it's a good opportunity for me, I would definitely love to bless you guys with at least one performance.
And we'd love to have you over here. We don't mind. Even if you're 150, we'd love you over here, Roy. Listen,
that's what I'm talking about.
It's unbelievable doing this with you. Thank you for so much of your time. God bless you, and I hope we can meet in the flesh one day.
Thank you. God bless you too, my brother.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 289 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive thank you to our two guests on this week's podcast, the reigning British light heavyweight champion, Craig Richards, and the former four-weight world champion, the living legend, Mr. Roy Jones Jr. I do apologise for some of the bad sound during the Roy Jones interview. He did it from his ranch in the United States, and the signal isn't great down the bottom of the ranch, and when he gets up to the top, the signal's pretty good there, but as I'm sure you heard, there's a number of loud chickens roaming around. There has been one or two pieces of news break whilst we've been recording this show. Bradley Skeet makes his ring return on June 4th in Sheffield. He's now fighting out at the Ingle Gym. He'll be coming off 2.5 years of inactivity. All the best to him. MTK Global have signed the unbeaten cruiserweight Dion Juma, a man who really needs to get going in his career. And in other news, it is happening. It's unbelievable. Floyd Mayweather has agreed to fight Logan Paul June the 6th in Miami. Not only is the fight on the same night as Teofimo Lopez against George Kambosos Jr., but it's in the same state. It is just a complete circus. I cannot believe we're actually getting to see this. But anyways, that's it from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe. Thanks once again for listening, and I hope you all come back again next week.